This is the lightning round here on Fresh Outlooks. We've got Occupy Wall Street celebrating a second anniversary, a new iPhone that has people lining up for hours, and a big snub at this year's Emmys. Dee Dee Benkie and Dr.Bart, thanks for sticking around. Of course, Paul Oster as well. We're going to start with Occupy Wall Street, which is celebrating its second anniversary this week. Let's take a look.
Remember Occupy Wall Street? This week marked the second anniversary of a movement that changed the nation. About 100 occupiers returned to the small granite plaza near the New York Stock Exchange that once teemed with thousands of protesters. But this time around, the park was barely half full. An assembly for the 99% was held in the afternoon at Zuccotti, a nod to the massive General Assembly meetings that were held on a daily basis in that park at the height of the movement.
Just by assembling in the park, we were able to change the conversation, and inspired by that, we see that we can change other things. It's not about the direct material things we do, it's more about the culture that we're transmitting.
But 2 years later, those who had been involved since the beginning feel the movement has changed.
In year two, more people now, it's more about building relationships, and people are getting more used to each other, so it's more respectful and people are understanding one another. And it's more about, I guess, this is a structure being built as far as like family structure and a brotherhood. So I guess year two is not as aggressive, as intense as the first year was, but I feel like this year is progressive, or even more progressive as the first year.
Despite the dwindling number of campaigners, people argue that their "We are the 99% slogan has become a common phrase, and their message has been heard. Some financial analysts say that although the protesters may have not forced institutional change, they still can be a potent force. The Occupy Wall Street movement began on September 17, 2011, in the form of the occupation of Zuccotti Park near the New York Stock Exchange, that all happening in protest of unfair wealth distribution in the United States. The protest focused mainly on banks and financial institutions, citing a struggle on behalf of the nation's 99% against its upper class. So, has the Occupy Wall Street movement lost its steam, or can it still affect Wall Street?
Do not let this happen again! Get a job! I have a job! I'm sorry education failed you.
Yeah, well, what about my 10 years experience?
Don't be too proud.
My brain didn't fail me.
My first job was a janitor.
Yeah.
You know what? It taught me a lot of lessons. I'd do it again if I had to.
You have no concept of what's going on, sir. I already have two jobs, higher than a janitor, 2 master's degrees, and 10 years business experience.
Well, that pretty much sums it up right there.
It does.
Well, I'll tell you, I was actually yelled at by an Occupy Wall Streeter right down in Wall Street. So, and there's such a debate here. They're saying there's no jobs, and of course, the other side is saying, hey, why don't you get a job? So, Dee Dee, we'll start with you and find out where I'm going to guess where you stand on this one.
Yeah, I think these people are lazy, wrong, anti-American, anti-capitalist, and they need to go get a job. Go do something. Quit partying down there and doing nothing and yelling at people who are successful. That's what America's all about, is being successful. So anyone who makes a lot of money, good for them.
Have they brought up at least a point? Paul?
They have brought up a point, but the point is that they've waited so long to express themselves that they turned what could have been a pretty influential movement and concept into an angry, bashing one side. You know, how dare you go out and work hard? You know, those people that they're yelling at get up at 4 a.m. to make a train. They miss spending time with their kids. They spend 10 to 12 hours working on their careers, and they shouldn't be bashed for doing that.
Are we going to see fizzle? Is that what we're seeing right now, Dr. Bart?
I think it's going to fizzle out. I think the point that was made about changing the conversation, I think they've changed the conversation. They had an impact. I grant them that, and I think that's a good thing. We should have people who change things and perceptions. So I think they've accomplished that. I don't think they can go any further.
Well, they all actually have, they say that the Occupy Wall Street, if you go onto their website, it now is Evolve, and it's splintering into smaller groups. But a lot of people are arguing that they were the most effective post-Sandy, when they were actually going out into the community and bringing things to the folks that were affected. But again, Dee Dee?
Yeah, it says so on their website. I don't believe them. I think they just want to complain about other people working hard, making a lot of money. Sorry, I think it's a pathetic movement.
Paul?
They're fizzling out. You know, I wish they would have focused more instead of splintering into a bunch of different things. I think their message is being lost now.
Okay.
They need an exit strategy.
Exactly.
I think you're already gone, actually.
Well, no exit strategy for the new iPhone. I don't know if you all saw the lines wrapped around those buildings. They said something like 1,400 people were online. Obviously, it's also launched in China. That's the first time ever. I don't know if anybody ever has seen the new iPhone. Have you taken a look at it? But just what it's been doing, obviously, for the economy, Paul, this is not a bad thing.
Well, those are the folks that I'd like to yell at, the ones that stand on lines for hours for a phone that is simply...
It's probably the Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, it is.
You must have a Samsung. I know, of course you do.
But come on, it's a phone. And a phone is a phone is a phone. And to me, it's just another sign about our cultural priorities. And I don't want to say that it's another sign that the apocalypse is upon us, but we're getting closer and closer to that.
Well, I don't even know what to say about that one. They do say that this new iPhone has a better scanner. It's got a new camera. It's got a detection of fingerprints.
The key is to say battery. With iPhone, I love the iPhone, but the batteries are terrible. They don't last very long. But everything else about the phone is great. I'd love to have a gold iPhone, and I don't think I'm part of the apocalypse. But I would not know if I'd stand in that line, but I'd stand in a small line.
Well, yeah, and they're calling it the gold iPhone. It's the most expensive one. And Dr. Bart, we'll just throw this one to you because obviously, we were talking about the economy in the last segment and how, people are a little bit more cautious, but it just seems that there's some people that will do anything to get this iPhone. Who are these people?
The psychology of waiting in line and staying overnight to get a phone.
But it's part of fun. It's part of the fun.
I think it's really interesting that certain personality types that want to go through that experience, say that they're the first or one of the first ones. That whole psychology, I guess, works for them, but I have trouble understanding exactly why, but they like it.
And I mentioned the Time magazine had a front cover of the Me generation that they want something instantly. So from the lines that I saw at the Apple store, I saw mostly younger people. Instant gratification. Agreed?
Maybe a little bit of that, but I think it's more that they want the excitement and being part of something. They feel that they belong to this thing about getting something very quickly and immediately and the experience with other people. I think there's something there.
Well, Apple's obviously onto something because they launched 2 for the first time. Paul?
They just continue to play upon the media hype and this psychology of, or psychosis of, wanting to be the first.
Do you have a flip phone? I mean, you have one of those 10 beat up
wanting to keep
BlackBerry.
Wanting to keep up with the Joneses. I would love to poll some of the people that stand on that line. Can they even actually afford it? Or are they just simply putting it on a credit card and they really have no business buying that phone at this point in time?
Hey, look, we're Americans. We can buy whatever we want to. If they want to spend their money on that, they should be able to do it. Good for them.
It's an asset that's way overvalued, and they're buying it with the lowest interest rates.
I disagree. You have your phone with you all the time. It's something very, very important to most people. I wish I had a gold iPhone. It'd be great.
Well, I've got the iPhone 5. I'm just not so sure I was going to stand in that line, though, either. But hey, more power to the people if that's what they want to do. But they do have some new gadgets, and it just makes you wonder, where are they going to go next? I mean, what else can they create?
But that's part of the excitement. That's what's neat. It's like, how in the world do they keep improving this phone? And they have the big block. It's such an interesting store, and they're just very good at the marketing, and they make it fun, and they make an event like Dr. Bart said, and I think it is fun. I mean, I actually walked by there, and it was amazing. People were having a great time.
Well, I think Apple's done a great job of linking gadgetry and people.
And
they do a good job with
it. It is an experience when you walk into an Apple store.
It's great.
Yeah.
What about the gold color? What does that say about the psychology there?
Which color?
The gold color.
I think the gold color was a terrific idea because it has a certain appeal to that segment of the population that wants something that's special. This looks like it's special.
It says gold standard.
I want platinum.
We're going to talk about a gold trophy now, and that's, of course, the Emmy Awards. They're going to be coming up this Sunday. And a bit of a controversy, and a lot of people are talking about a big snub for Larry Hagman. Every year, it's always a very poignant segment on all the award shows where they go back and they look at the lives and the people that died that year. Larry Hagman, as we see right there on our screen, of course, he was an American television star for many, many years, decades, in fact, and really Dallas was the #1 rated show for years. He is not being rewarded or being honored in the same way. They're going with Corey Monteith to bring in a younger, and the producers came out and said this, that they want to attract a younger audience. Let's just get some thoughts on this, because the Twitter sphere is actually lightening up on this one.
Terrible. Okay, this is supposed to be a lifetime achievement when people die that have done and contributed so much to TV. I Dream of Jeannie, Dallas, and then Dallas again. Last year on Times Square, we had Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing came back yet again. This guy needs to be honored. It's a travesty. I hope everybody goes in their cowboy hats and says, we want Larry Hagman. I hope they do. They should revolt and said, we want Larry.
And of course, when JR was shot, I believe that was one of the most top-rated shows of all time.
I couldn't agree with Dee Dee more. I mean, when you talk about lifetime achievement, the problem is you have a handful of people trying to influence and put their beliefs on the country. If you took a poll as to who should have been nominated, I think hands down it would have been Larry Hagman.
Yeah, and I always talk about personality trumping everything. In this case, there's no bigger personality than Larry Hagman. I mean, in TV history, he may be number one,
and
actually.
And the whole list, I think he is number one of the whole list of the people that are being remembered.
They're honoring this year Corey Monteith, who only really has one television credit to his name. And I do happen to agree. I'm not supposed to really have my opinion here, but I do agree, because I think there's other ways to bring in the younger audience, certainly with some of the acts and things like that. And let's face it, most of the people that you're honoring in tributes are going to be older. Absolutely.
That's a dumb thing to pick to try to bring in younger people. There are a million other things they can do with the Emmys to bring in younger people.
Should we be advisors to these people?
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to send them this clip and tell them. But this year, Corey Monteith, James Gandolfini, of course, Jean Stapleton, of course, she's older as well.
Yeah, but not more important than J.R. Ewing.
Gary David Goldberg and Jonathan
who the heck is that?
Winters.
Really? The guy who did Family Ties and Brooklyn Bridge? What the heck is that all about? That next to J.R. Ewing, I'm sorry, but they're just wrong.
And they said another one, it's not quite as big, the movement, but the Jack Klugman was also not.
Oh.
So what are you gonna say when are you gonna watch the Emmys?
I'm gonna live tweet the Emmys like crazy, and it's gonna be all about JR. I'm gonna honor JR Ewing. I love JR. I love that character because it's just so interesting. You know what I mean? It's just how in the world could they snub the guy? So I hope they change their mind last minute. I hope they do something special.
Actually, I have a collection of cowboy hats. Very good cowboy hats.
Oh, I didn't want to mention this, but I've got my cowboy boots on.
I'm gonna wear them to the show.
All right. Well, you stand outside while do the sign.
Well, we'll see if anybody does that.